Felicia and Michael. Oh, recording in progress. Okay. How is everyone doing? I am Joe with Siser North America. Welcome to my class. Another fun Michael Zoom class for you. I hope you're all having a wonderful Friday. I hope you're excited for this weekend. If you're watching this replay, this weekend was 4th of July. So we are preparing for 4th of July. So thank you for those that are tuning in live right now. My class is all about pressing Siser heat transfer vinyl onto cardstock. So before I get started, as mentioned, utilize that chat bar if you can. If you have questions, if there's anything you want answered along the way, please feel free to ask along the way. We'll hopefully get everything answered. Everything I am showing you in this class is available at Michael's store or Michael's online. Today's lesson is a really fun one in my mind because it kind of goes outside of the box of what people think about with Siser heat transfer vinyls. I've done projects like this in the past. I've heat applied onto wood. I've heat applied onto other forms of paper, other forms of hard substrates. But today we are going to be making a paper banner with cardstock using various Siser HTV. And I'm going to be applying with the Siser Craft Heat Press. So that is pretty much all you need in order to do the project we're doing today, and some twine. I've been told that fishing line is not as friendly for this type of project, especially with paper products, because it has a tendency to kind of slide. So with twine, it does help kind of keep each attribute in place. And I'm excited. I hope you can hang out the entire class because we're going to show you the big reveal for the whole paper banner. We're super stoked to show you. So basically, all you're going to need is a vinyl cutter. So this is going to cut both the cardstock and the HTV. So if you have a Cricut or a Silhouette, that's all you need. Just make sure when you're cutting your cardstock, you have your setting correctly, as well as the heat transfer vinyl. So between the two, there's going to be a difference between your cut settings. Very important to make sure you do test cuts for both of them. For what we use today for cardstock, we actually used 80-pound cardstock, which is a lot thicker of a cardstock rather than something much thinner, which is not completely impossible. We just decided that for a paper banner, the thicker the cardstock can go, the better, the more longevity there might be with the overall results. The heat transfer vinyl I'm going to be using today is actually our EasyWeed electric HTV, which has that fun sheen to it when it's applied, as well as our glitter heat transfer vinyl that I'm going to show layered on top of the EasyWeed electric. And again, I'm going to be applying with the Craft Heat Press here. If you are using a home iron or if you have an easy press, you can absolutely do what we're going to be showing you today. So without further ado, again, does anyone have any questions before we get going? It's going to be a pretty quick application, pretty quick class. And I'm excited to show you the end result. It's going to be great for any occasion, any holiday. I know what I'm going to be showing you today is for the 4th of July, or a little lean towards that, but I hope you can take the idea and make it your own. So this is also a project that our awesome colleague here at Siser, Anna, had helped me make this design. So she actually created the entire paper banner that I'm going to be showing you today. So it's an original from her. So if you have other forms of templates or things you want to use in order to do the paper cardstock cutting, I'm sure there's a bunch of different options out there. If you signed up for this class, the cut file for this entire banner I'm going to show you was available. If you didn't get that, we are going to also share it over in our Siser North America support group on our Facebook page later. So make sure you tune in there if you want to get this cut file. So basically, each one of these pieces of cardstock are uniquely different. Again, small attributes. I hope we can see it. Maybe switch the camera angles. We can get a good idea of some of the cardstock that we're going to be using today. So between just the simple red, white, and blue, these are kind of how the cardstock was cut. As you can see, a lot of fine detail inside the cardstock. Again, these are 80-pound cardstock. They were 12-inch. we were able to utilize 2 of these per sheet. Again, very important when you set it up on your vinyl cutter. It is also important to remember when you set these up using a mat, that there's 2 things to look out for. When you're using a cutting mat for either your Cricut or your Silhouette, you want to pay attention to how aggressive the adhesive is on there. So if the adhesive is too aggressive, you want to be careful, especially when you're peeling the paper backing off without tearing it, as well as you want to be careful if your mat is not tacky enough. If it's not tacky enough, there might be a chance that the paper might slide. So this is all things to look out for when you're beginning the actual cutting process. So if you need to add some adhesive to your mat, make sure you do that before. And then if the adhesive is fresh or a brand new mat, we suggest actually when you go and your cut's done with your paper product, you don't actually peel the paper product off the mat. You would actually peel the mat off the paper product. It does make a difference between doing the 2. We definitely don't want you to rip or tear any of your paper product. It also is beneficial because it will pull all these little cavities out in one pull. So it's pretty handy when that happens. So this is all we did here. We cut it again with using the cardstock, setting on the Cricut. Again, still do a test cut. Make sure you're getting the force. Now, with the heat transfer vinyl, it's a different story. Make sure that your cut settings work for that. It's going to be a lot less. Obviously, if you've never used Siser heat transfer vinyl, it already has a carrier on it. You're going to cut your design in reverse. And the next step is going to be basically weeding away the excess material, as most of you have already done, probably in your lives. If you haven't, that's a lot of fun, especially if you're cutting small detail. This is very important to make sure that your cut is good. Since I'm going to be weeding some fine detail, I'm not going to be using the heat press trick. If those that have actually seen my past classes, I've showed you how you can weed Siser EasyWeed family, so EasyWeed Electric being one of them. You can use the heat press to actually speed up your weeding process. But when you have very fine detail like I do in this, as you can see all those fine little dots, very, very tough to get proper cuts if you don't set up your vinyl cutter correctly, and you might have the chance of that lifting off. So in this case, I'm just going to weed it right here in front of me. This right here is our rainbow white glitter that I'm going to layer on top of the EasyWeed Electric. So we use the red, white, and blue EasyWeed Electric, which are these that I'm weeding here. And then we use the rainbow white glitter, as well as our champagne glitter, which is a little bit of gold that we're going to add to kind of accentuate some of the firework design we have. One last thing. Has anyone tried applying Siser HTV onto any other thing other than a garment? Like, have you tried it on a piece of paper? Have you tried it onto a hard substrate? I always like to hear what people do with the Siser product. Again, I know we educate people as it being something that works only for garments, but this is something where we love to see how crafters take this outside of the box, how they can change it, add some dimension, add some new look to various hard substrates, whatever it is. So please feel free to share some projects that you've done maybe with these in the chat here. And now we're just going to get right into the application. So I have all my weeded pieces. I'm going to cut down my glitter real fast because this is going to go on 3 different pieces of paper.
Those are some very large.
Like these scissors, I can't complain. They actually worked with left hand.
Yeah.
Normally scissors don't work with left-handed people. The pain, the struggle is real. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna first make sure I have this placed correctly. See, I almost applied that the wrong way. So you want to make sure that that works on how you did your design. That is going to be perfect. Okay, so what's great about this, if you're using the Siser Craft Heat Press, you have enough space to do 2 of these at once. So that's how we're going to apply these so we can get a little bit faster on our application. So first things first, I just want to let you know, we are going to be applying with the heat press, and I do not have the heat press set to what I would be set to for a textile. I hope that makes sense. We are applying at a much lower temperature. So the temperature is a lot lower because I don't need to worry about whether I'm going to be washing this. Now, if you look at the tech sheets that come on the Michaels rolls, the Siser EasyWeed Electric or our glitter, it's going to tell you what temperature to apply at. And that is because that is what we recommend when it goes onto a textile that's going to be washed. This isn't going to be washed, so we can play around a little bit on the temperature. So I'm actually set to 270 degrees on my heat press. First thing I'm going to do is test the pressure still. So right now, that's a firm pressure. I just want to tack it to see how it reacts on this. This is also what we recommend if you do apply on any kind of substrate that isn't a textile, is always test it first. Okay, I think everything was good. I'm not going to really go the full duration on these either. So I'm going to tack my first layer down. And this one, I'm just going to kind of eyeball the placement of it. Obviously, you can look out for things that you're doing when you're playing with your own designs. But I'm just going to eyeball where this goes best I can. I think that's good to go. Now I'm just going to be using simple parchment paper as my cover sheet. You still want to make sure you protect that upper platen. And now with this, I'm going to actually just tack this down for 1 to 2 seconds. And then you can peel hot. Obviously, if you see any lifting, just make sure you go back. That's the benefit of the Siser EasyWeed family. We have the sticky backing, which if anything lifts up, you can lay it back down and reapply it. It's not ruined. Okay, so now we're going to add our next layers. Any questions so far? Patrick, you ever do a project like this?
Do projects like this all the time.
What was your favorite project?
I do brick on substrate or on wood.
Brick on wood?
Yeah, gives you a nice little dimensional effect. But I do a lot of EasyWeed on wood as well. Just because sometimes I get too lazy to paint. That's really what it is. Anybody in here that paints wood signs, they know it's a process.
I got to remember how this one in particular was placed.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
You got to make Anna proud.
I found it. I know. I always like to switch it up a little bit on Anna, just because she works so hard to make it work out so swimmingly, and I like to make sure that it doesn't.
There you go.
So, all right, I'm going to tack the next layer, which is just the EasyWeed Electric Red, 1 to 2 seconds. Feel hot. And one last layer for these, which is this is our champagne glitter. Sometimes with these blasts of color.
Yeah. You're right, though. She tries to test you.
She does test me. I appreciate it. So these segments have recently turned into like get Joe out of his comfort zone on applying stuff, which has been great. I think everyone's having a blast with it. And again, it's all for fun. And what I love showing is if I'm going to be able to do it, anybody can do it. All right, so I'm going to tack this last one down for about 5 seconds. Again, this is going on paper, so it doesn't need to be the full duration we recommend on our tech sheets. So do not feel like you need to go the full time. As long as you see it applied, it's going to be good. There we go. We have 2 ready to go. And now we're going to cruise with the rest of them. kind of the exact same process as what we just did. I'm going to be doing 2 at a time. And these, I'm going to actually be layering the EasyWeed or the EasyWeed electric with the glitter on top of it.
I was gonna say, don't go white on white. You gotta have something.
I know, right? I know. Well, fortunately, we added the letter in the middle of it. I think that's upside down. This one, we did have to add the placement, so we had it in the center of our design.
Hey, Joe, this is Felicia. I got a question.
Absolutely.
Is there a way to get that design on Cricut or Silhouette design stores?
No, not this exact design. We did this. This is an original design from Anna, did create this from scratch. But I do believe that Cricut or Silhouette have similar types for cardstock. But this one was done by Anna herself. So she designed this one. And again, we have it available. It was on the sign up once you got into this class. If you didn't get that, we're going to post it up in our Facebook group after this class. Make sure you join over there. All right, so I'm adding a different color of EasyWeed Electric here. Now, I have the 2 colors of EasyWeed Electric, just like with textiles. This is a possibility you can do as well. If you wanted to layer Siser glitter directly on top of any of our EasyWeed products, whether it's for paper, whether it's for garments itself, you can absolutely do this. So this is being applied directly onto it. And just like the last one, I'm going to tack this for about 5 seconds. And then I got one more to apply. And then with the Siser glitter, it is a hot peel.
And I know I'm not the only one that was watching, but that timer set to 8 seconds and you said 5. So I know everybody was watching it go down and you pulled it right at 3. So we're good.
I'm looking, but I appreciate you.
But I know I'm not the only one that was watching for that.
Do you guys want to hear it beep? Is that what we're waiting for
I think
too?
everybody's waiting for it to beep.
All right. Well, I'll give you the 1 second and then we'll do the full 8 seconds just to hear the beep. I know the excitement with the beep. It's very it's fun. You're like, wait a minute, I'm done. I could just simply do this. Let me just show it, Trev. Let's go up. We're gonna go into mode. Can we see it? Yep. All right. So in mode, I'm gonna click. That's my setting. So I'm set to 270. I'm gonna click it one more time. It does say 8 seconds. So I'm gonna actually just bring it down to the 5. Click it one more time. You got to make sure you go to that final menu page. Now I don't need to worry about that 8 seconds. I'm going to do the full 5 seconds and my heat press is going to tell me when it's done. All right. So the glitter on top of the EasyWeed Electric. Press for the 5 seconds. Patrick's going to get his countdown. Ready, folks?
There we go.
There it is.
1. There.
Yes.
Nice.
And we're popping it open. It's telling me I'm done. All right. And that's right. I am done officially with the application side of it. So does anyone have questions on what we just did in that part? No. Okay. All right. So the next step, we're going to be creating our banner. Here is where it's very important to remember when you are setting up your banner file, if you're doing your own logo or you're doing your own design, that you make sure you leave room for where you can fish the twine through it. So I want to make sure that I have the twine going through each one of these, obviously evenly, so I can hang it. So what I'm going to do is just measure slightly a little bit larger than how I have it laid before me. Spoke too soon on the left-handed.
Gotta go all the way to the back side.
What's that?
You gotta go all the way to the back.
I know, right? Yeah. Okay, so here's where the fun is. And for those that don't have steady hands like me, it's extra fun. So we get to now fish The twine, I'm gonna go behind my banners here. So I'm basically gonna fish it behind this, but pop it through the other side. And then this is gonna connect all of these. So I'm just gonna kind of pull this through. And again, you kind of can feel out how you want this to be laid out, but just make sure you do this as one final step.
Somebody asked, has anyone tried applying HTV to art foam?
To art
So
foam?
art foam basically looks like cardstock sheets,
Yeah.
if I'm correct, if I'm correct on what they're talking about. I've applied to them. The only thing you have to make sure that you do is adjust your pressure, because art foam feels more like a t-shirt than it does cardstock.
Yeah.
So
I would also
actually
be,
pliable.
I would be cautious on the actual heat and how the heat affects the art foam. I wouldn't want you ruining that, but you can test it out. Again, when you apply to things, just remember this rule of thumb. If you're applying to things that aren't going to be laundered or washed, you have far more wiggle room on the temperature you're setting for application. The HTV will more than likely go down onto whatever thing you're trying to heat apply onto at a lower temperature. The problem when it goes too low is if you were to wash it. So if you don't wash this, then you don't really have to worry about it. So something like that is definitely doable. I would just be cautious when it comes to actually heat applying onto some substrates. They might react differently under heat. Yeah, I think last Halloween, I did a class here, if you want to look that up, on just applying various HTV onto wood plaques, which actually ended up going pretty well. But yeah, that's that. Check it out.
that's really good.
So I have my one piece of the banner. Got to hold it awkwardly, but we're going to do one big reveal before we get going here, or to kind of close it off. But before we get into that, does anyone have questions on what we just did?
Hey, Joe, we can't hear you anymore. We can't hear you.
Check your pack, make sure.
There we go.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Hopefully I wasn't out too long. Does anyone have questions on what I just showed you? We're gonna finally piece the entire banner for you. Is everyone good? All right, well, I have to get prepared. Oh, I lost it, Patrick. I need it. I'm gonna get super patriotic for this final phase here. Yes. I gotta turn these on. That's right, we're going full 4th of July, people.
Full blown 4th.
All right, so here it is, big reveal. Are we good, Trevor? We're gonna show it over here. Okay, check it out. The whole banner in action. I'm gonna tie this off. All I have are thumbtacks into the shiplap. And there you have it. Happy 4th of July, USA. How epic. Every one of those cut out with the cardboard or cardstock, as well as heat applied with heat transfer vinyl by Siser. So again, we used EasyWeed electric colors, red, white, and blue. I know this is how sweet is this. Red, white, and blue, and the rainbow white glitter, obviously for the foreground here. And again, 80-pound cardstock, the thicker the better for this. Because again, if I put this outside, this is going to be a little bit more forgiving. But obviously you can always hang it inside your house on something whether it is indoors, outdoors, so much you can do with it. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode for the Michael Zoom class with Siser North America. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you guys want this cut file, please make sure you join in at the Siser North America support group. We are going to post this up with the cut file if you want to try it today. I want to see the projects you do with any of the Siser products. That's what we want to see on this end. It's pretty great. So please make sure you share it with us on our social medias. We're all over Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Go subscribe to the channel there. Thank you. Everything in here to Michael's. Everything we use today is available at your Michael's store or Michael's online. So go get your hands on it today. Thank you, Michael's, for having me on again, and everybody that tuned in today, as well as those watching it later on. I'm Joe with Siser North America. Take me seriously, and I'll talk to you very soon.